When it comes to one of the most important technologies of our time, clean and renewable energy, the US is falling behind. Despite the urgent need to transition away from fossil fuels and curb climate change, America has been slow to adopt renewable power sources like solar, wind, and electric vehicles. While other nations are racing ahead, the US remains tethered to outdated energy systems that are bad for our planet. So what's holding us back? There are a few key hurdles preventing wide-scale clean energy adoption in the US. Infrastructure. The US energy infrastructure is aging and still heavily reliant on fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas that have powered the country for over a century. This means we have an extensive network of pipelines, refineries, and power plants built for carbon-emitting sources. Switching to renewables requires overhauling this infrastructure, which is an immense undertaking that will take years and many billions of dollars. Developing new transmission lines, charging stations, and battery storage is still a work in progress. Other nations that never built out huge fossil fuel systems have an advantage here as they can more easily implement renewable infrastructure from the ground up. Money and lobbying. The massive oil, gas, and coal industries in America dump enormous sums resisting the transition away from their products. They heavily lobby politicians to protect tax breaks and subsidies that prop up their businesses. Meanwhile, they launch public relations campaigns sowing doubts about climate science and casting renewables as inefficient. As long as fossil fuels remain profitable, these powerful interests will fight policies supporting wind, solar, and EVs. Cost and pricing. While the prices of renewables are dropping rapidly, many consumers and companies still see upfront costs as prohibitive compared to cheaper fossil fuels, whose negative externalized costs like pollution and health impacts are not fully priced in. In addition, inconsistent and unpredictable US energy policy makes corporate and residential adoption of clean alternatives riskier investments. More predictable long-term policy and incentives are still needed to bring renewables to parity with coal and gas on price. Other nations subsidizing clean energy more heavily have accelerated this cost reduction process. Decentralized energy systems. The US grid was designed over a century ago and built for large centralized fossil fuel plants distributing power over long distances. But renewable energy works best when generated and used locally through smaller distributed systems. Reconfiguring the grid for two-way power flows and integrating intermittent renewable sources requires a major rethinking of how energy systems function, something regulators, utilities, and grid operators are still adapting to. Other nations innovating smart grids from the start are ahead on easily integrating local solar and wind. What does this all mean? It shows that America lacks the political will and economic context needed to transition rapidly to renewable energy at this point in time. Our infrastructure remains designed for fossil fuels, powerful special interests still favor the status quo, and costs or policies aren't stable enough to drive mass adoption of clean alternatives. However, that doesn't mean the US will always lag. The conditions are shifting. Renewable prices are plummeting way faster than predicted and will likely reach fossil fuel parity nationwide within 5 years. When clean energy is cheaper, adoption will explode. Younger generations who will inherit the planet are overwhelmingly supportive of climate action. As they gain political influence, priorities will change. Extreme weather events and rising sea levels are bringing climate impacts home and altering public opinion. People increasingly demand solutions. Technology advances in batteries, hydrogen, etc. are enabling renewables to overcome limitations and further drive down costs. More corporations are committing to 100% clean power due to customer or investor demand, depriving fossil fuels of major customers. The infrastructure of allied nations successfully adopting renewables proves large-scale transition is possible with proper policy framework. So while America faces genuine barriers, the winds of change are blowing. With the right policies like a long-term carbon price, renewable portfolio standards, and charging infrastructure investment, we could start catching up fast. And when the economic case is undeniable, even the most stubborn opponents will be forced to adapt or get left behind. If you want America to lead on clean energy, like, subscribe, and share this video widely. Together, we can spark the change needed for a renewable future.